We are on the cusp of a major social change. Do you feel it? Even if you don't, make no mistake, change is coming, and it is going to be unforgettable. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Hart, and here on Prime Spark, where we work with and on behalf of women over 55, I want to help you find that spark that will ignite your way forward, reflect your gifts to the world, and illuminate your path through this next stage of life. Through these podcast conversations, I hope to inspire you to see how you can make a significant contribution to some of the gnarly problems that are facing us right now. Join me, and together let's discover our Prime Spark. Hi, and welcome to Prime Spark. I'm Sarah Hart, and I'm so happy you're here with us. Prime Spark is designed for women over 55, or close, with a goal to help us all live our happiest, most fulfilling and productive lives, now and in the future. The mission of Prime Spark is to change the way our society sees and treats older women. That's a big mission, which only means we all need to be involved and we need to get going now. And today I have the pleasure of talking with Susan Davis and CiCi Stewart, women whose work I greatly admire. Susan M. Davis, a seasoned entrepreneur of 50 plus years, thrives as a co-creator, business and marketing mentor, and facilitator. Her company, the Co-Creation Community, now in its 12th year, is fueled by re-inspirement, focusing on women aged 55 and beyond. Cynthia, CiCi Stewart, shines as an acclaimed author, PBS development director, and marketing professional. As the author of several nonfiction international best-selling books for women in business and multiple book contributions, CiCi's positive energy and passion for helping women resonates in all her ventures. Together, Susan and CiCi co-create Life Matters Workshop, Getting Your Affairs Together, radiating inspiration and motivation for women over 55 to gain the peace of mind of having their affairs in order and leaving a legacy of kindness for their loved ones after they're gone. Welcome, Susan and CiCi. I'm so happy you're here with us today.
Thank you. Great to be here, Sarah.
Thank you. So just in getting started, let me ask you, do each of you experience getting older? And if you do, what is that experience? And if you don't, why is it that you think that you don't?
I've experienced getting older, and most recently, after turning 60, for the first time in my life, I was even aware of my age. Before that, I thought I was 30 for the last 20 years prior, But now I recognize a lot of things, both in the changing of my physical body, health issues, looking down the road at financial security and creating that. So there's a lot of things that have changed for me as I've moved over that 60-year mark.
Yeah, and for me, I'm 72 now, and I have noticed that every decade is a change, and it's not always a bad change. In fact, I think it's a good change. I am inspired by the women that I know who are my age or 10 years older, 20 years older, because it is a different chapter and they're doing amazing things. And so I am inspired by them. Although the end does seem closer than it has ever felt before.
Well, we don't know, any of us, when the end is, no matter what our age. But it is accurate that as we get into our 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the end probably is closer. And that is not a bad thing to realize and to get on with it.
Exactly.
That's
Oh.
right.
I love what you two are doing. I think it is so important and so needed. So, why did you decide to create the Life Matters workshop, getting your affairs together, and explain exactly what it means that you do in that workshop?
For myself personally, my goal for many years, for decades, has been focused on helping women. Because as a young mother in my late 30s, just having given birth to my fifth child, my miracle child, we call her, my husband was diagnosed and 7 weeks later died from cancer. At that time in our financial career, we had closed several of our RV dealerships and were operating with one of the largest ones, and ended up closing that due to economy. That's where we were when he passed away. We did not have our affairs in order. I did not know that he had several $100,000 owed in state and federal taxes. There was no income. And that was a very desperate, besides the fact of grieving the loss of my very best friend and lifelong companion, we always talked about each other. We were going to be together forever. And his life was cut short, and I was not prepared. And so I think the fundamental reason for me is to help women not be there, to help them have their feet firmly planted on the ground, to know what their finances are, and to have them organized in such a way that they can be at peace and not think about those things for the remaining years of their life.
Also, I think just recently, CiCi had an experience that reinforced all of that. Why don't you share
Yes,
that too?
I was minding my own business, working with Susan, developing this program, and all of a sudden ended up in the emergency room and had a situation occurred with scar tissue from a surgery 40 years prior. I mean, who could ever imagine or plan for that? And I was in the hospital for 6 days. I mean, my mortality crossed my mind more than once, and just reinforced again to me in a more current, deeper way that this preparation is critically important to all women and men as well. And so I'm just more committed than ever to make this work for other women and to get this spread out across the nation.
Yeah. And my story is a little bit different, coming why this has become such an important effort for both CiCi and me. But for me, back in 2001, my parents both had strokes on the same day. And that was life-changing for them and for our whole family. Because when someone has a stroke, it's like they have been living on Main Street and their whole life together. And it's been wonderful. And they have a wonderful, wonderful life doing what they're passionate about and what they just have built together. And then in the blink of an eye, they have to move to First Street. And on First Street, everything has changed and they can't get back to Main Street ever. And that's the way my parents were. Now, fortunately, my parents had prepared. They had a living trust. They had things organized. They were very well prepared before the strokes. Their stroke, each of them I mean, literally on the same day, they had these strokes that knocked them off course onto First Street, and they could not at that point get their affairs together. They were incapable of it. Now, they lived for 7 more years, but when they passed away, within a few months of each other in 2009, their estate was so well prepared that my sisters and I had no problem closing things up and moving on. And in fact, it was, even though we were grieving, it was almost like a joyful celebration of their lives together, that we were able to close up this estate and move on. So I had this incredible example of what things should be. And I was 50 when this happened. They were in their 70s when the strokes happened. And so now, fast forward 20 years or whatever it is, I am now at 72. And I do have a living trust that we just had updated a year and a half ago. But everything else, I'm not prepared. And so there's so much more that needs to be done. And I need to be like my parents. And so that was the impetus, really, to start this Life Matters workshop, because I know I'm not prepared. And I'm not alone. Most of the women that we have talked to agree that they need to get their affairs together to have that peace of mind that I want to have, that everyone wants to have, so we can live the rest of our time in the moment and having fun and doing what we want to do without worrying about, oh gosh, I don't have all that stuff together yet.
And when you talk about getting stuff together, is it just financial stuff? I mean,
No.
I put just in quotation marks because that's a lot, but is it just financial things?
No, not at all. In fact, we have created this workshop to cover so many topics beyond finances and beyond estate planning. Although we do cover estate matters and we do cover financial matters, but we also are covering end-of-life matters, choices that we have at the end of our life, like hospice or death. We are having a death doula come and present. What kind of funeral choices are out there beyond cremation and burial? There are so many things. What's going to happen to your pets? What kinds of things do we need to be concerned about getting together for those left behind, about our online presence? I mean, there's just so many topics.
And we're broadening it. We are also learning as we go. We initially set up this pilot workshop to address several topics. Susan has just mentioned some of them, or most of them, but we are already expanding and learning and growing our thoughts and ideas and ways that we can help people more fully. Because we really do believe that this is important work. And the people that are in this program with us are all saying the same thing, including some of the professional speakers, such as we had a state attorney, a trust attorney that handles primarily elder law. She was impressed with what we're doing and has given great accolades. The same with our financial advisor and investment consultant last week. So we will continue to develop and expand our offerings as we go.
Yeah.
I work with women over 55 or 50, and over and over and over, when I speak with women about what I do, they don't want to think about getting older. It's just I don't want to think about this. And I could imagine that that's way heightened when you want to talk to people about making plans for end of life. Do you run into that or not?
Well, the way that we've structured this workshop is really, it's so powerful. We've structured it in a way that it covers 6 sessions, and they're every other week for 2 hours. And the first hour is really a powerful, almost like a group coaching session where we talk about the topic and the topic of the week before, where we had an assignment and we have exercises or experiences to work on, and the bonding and the support and the community feel, this connection that this group has formed, alleviates a lot of that barrier, that block to, I don't want to think about it. And it kind of opens it up to, oh my gosh, I do want to think about this. It is important to me.
I could imagine people feel that way after they're there. I'm thinking about people who are looking at a description of what it is and think, whoa, I'm not going there.
When my question would be, when will you go there? Will it be when you're in the hospital, maybe dying? I mean, I'm too young to die. I'm definitely have many more years of life, knock on wood, cross fingers and pray. But that wake up call for me to be in that hospital, and seriously, you have a mass, it could be cancerous. And having lost my spouse and aunt and other people to that demise, it is a wake up call. So why not get this part of our life put together and behind us, so to speak, where now I don't have to think about it. It's done.
I think it's really interesting that there are so many things that we need to pay attention to, and that many of us don't until there's some kind of a wake-up call.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And hopefully we can take whatever action we need to take without having a major wake-up call or somebody else's wake-up call.
Right.
Yeah. And
right?
often it is someone else's wake-up call that wakes us up. And the stories that we have heard from so many people, that every single one of the 9 women who are in this pilot workshop, each has a unique story of why they are there. And some of them are just heartbreaking. And the sessions are very emotional. And then the people that we speak to out in the world and talk to about this, so many of them have their own stories, good, bad, and ugly. I mean, it's like there's all kinds of stuff out there. And my feeling is we don't know what we don't know until we know it. And so having a forum where we can learn about the things that we don't know, even the things that we think we know. I felt really confident that my living trust was exactly the way it needs to be, until I heard Valerie Logston, the estate attorney, speak about trusts. And then I thought, oh, I better check this and make sure that my trust, even though I was working with an attorney, is the way I really want it to be.
Mm-hmm. And the same, it's true. We had Janice Dunn from Dun & Baird, who is a financial investment advisor. She spoke last week, and she was talking about how state and federal laws change all the time, and people's investments they need to modify them. They need to make changes. They need to be. So sticking your head in the sand and saying, I don't want to think about getting old, is kind of immature, because we're already there. And old being in quotes, we are not old. We are older. And therefore, let's be wise and make wise decisions about our futures.
Yeah. It's interesting, Cici, because one of my goals with Prime Spark is to change our reaction to being old.
Yes, good.
I encourage people to use the word old. I was in a long discussion with somebody the other day who wanted to talk about, mature. And I said, well, not old people are mature, and some young people are very mature. And then she said, well, wise. And I said, same thing with that.
Yeah.
There's some old people who are not wise and some young people. Let's just be old. We're getting older, and we're old. And I think a step that we all need to try to take is to, maybe we talk about young. So let's learn to talk about old.
Well, that's what I like about Prime Spark. You're changing the image of what the word old means. It does not mean dead.
Right.
Yeah,
when people say, I don't want to think about getting older, I say, well, okay. And if I'm being a real smart aleck, I say, you got the two alternatives. Yeah. You can either get older or you can die right now. So, that's I try not to say that because that really turns people off, but every once in a while.
But it's so true.
Why do you call it Life Matters? It seems to be, I have a couple months ago, I bought a book and the title is I'm Dead, Now What? And it seems to be, it is 180 degrees from Life Matters. But it's the same kind of thing. So why Life Matters?
Well, I think I love words. I love language. I love to play with words. And I love the fact that matters is both a noun and a verb. And I think that our lives do matter as a verb. And our lives matter at every age and phase of our life. And I love the idea that matters are like your affairs. The noun means affairs. So life affairs are important, and getting them in order is important, and knowing what we don't know, being exposed to things that we may not know in terms of matters that matter that we may not know about.
When I first saw that title, one of the things I thought about was so many older people that I talk to. The reason why they say, I don't know if they're acting on it, but they say they want to get things in order is they don't want to leave the mess for their kids like they had. And so exactly. I thought life matters. Life matters to your children. And so take care of this aspect for your children.
Exactly.
Whether you want to do it right now or not, just do it and get it done.
And that's the legacy of kindness. That's the legacy of kindness that my parents left for my sisters and me. It was all done. It was so easy. We didn't have to stress.
Or fight.
It was just a beautiful finish to wonderful lives.
Right.
That mattered. Their lives mattered to us. They still do.
Right.
So
what about each of your professional backgrounds led you to putting this together? Your professional backgrounds. You've talked about your personal backgrounds. How about your professional backgrounds?
Well, for me, as I mentioned earlier, I've had this decades inspiration to help women. I've done it by writing business books for women. I was once interviewed on The View, Barbara Walters. I was backstage with Barbara Walters, and I had just lost my husband. I was still nursing my baby. And this is primarily women, so I feel comfortable saying this. All I was worried about is am I leaking? Because I'm on television. And after the film was done, we were backstage, and Barbara said, "What are you working on next? You're a great writer. What's your next book?" And I'm looking at her. She's such a pro. I'm looking at her with just, blank stare. And she said, "Let me ask you this. What are you passionate about?" And right out of my mouth, without a thought, I am passionate about helping women to have peace and not be in the situation that I find myself in right now, alone with 5 children and no significant income. And so she said, "That's a great place to start." And that was my very first book. It came to me that night in Manhattan in a hotel. Woke up in the middle of the night and I had it. I'm going to write a book to help women financially. And I pitched that the next day to the publisher and the agent and the other couple of authors that were in on this book I was being interviewed for. And they said, "Oh my goodness, look at it snowing. Isn't it beautiful when it snows?" They just completely ignored me, right? And I couldn't stop this. I had to keep doing it. And so I wrote several books for women. I did public speaking all over the country just to inspire and help women come to their own understanding that they are powerful beings at any age. So that's my story, basically, in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it, but
yeah. And for me, for so many years, I've been an entrepreneur, and I've created businesses and created programs, curriculum, all kinds of things. I get great joy creating. I am a creator of packages, programs, businesses, things like that. And I get all jazzed up doing it. I want to do what jazzes me up. I want to do what is fun for me to do. And so what's fun for me to do is to create and to co-create, because that's really, really where it's at. Something that's meaningful. And a course, a process, a program, an ecosystem. This is bigger than a workshop. It really is. And it's growing faster than we ever thought it would. It's just like, and it's multidimensional. It's just like growing so well as an ecosystem to help women and other individuals to feel this peace so that they can continue living their lives. And then when they do go, leave that legacy of kindness. So my professional background in creating structures and frameworks and programs is what I really feel I can bring to the table with Life Matters.
One of the things I frequently get asked, not frequently, but I would say often, depending upon who I'm talking to and depending upon the audience, men will say, "Sarah, what you're talking about applies equally to men. Why don't you include men?" And I say, I don't include men because I'm not a man. And I know what it means as a woman to get older. I don't know what it means as a man to get older. So I suggest if you sound like you're interested, you go start something for men. So I could imagine that men say to you, "Wait a minute, we need this just as much as the women do. Why aren't you including us?"
Yep. And the first one that said that was my husband. And, we've been together for 53 years. And so everything we do is co-created and together. And he says, "Well, what you're doing is so great. Why are you limiting it to women?" And I said to him, "Well, the pilot is going to be for women, where we are targeting women over 55 because we are them. We know this group of people. And what we've created, with the pilot, I don't think that had a man been in the group, in our participants, I don't think we would have had this level of vulnerability, of connection,
Openness.
openness. It would have been a different dynamic. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that in the future we will be this limited, because as we grow to an online platform, an online ecosystem, there will be room for intimate groups of people that may be, people can have the choice. Do I want to be with 9 women? Do I want to be with just LGBTQ people? Do I want to be with single men? Do I want to be in a couples group? We can have it all, because online we have the ability to facilitate those kinds of more defined groups. And I think that the dynamic will be different. And I think that perhaps the presenters will be different, and perhaps the topics may be different.
It's interesting because when you didn't, I'm taking responsibility for saying this. Neither of you said this. That in my opinion, if you had a typical quote unquote man in your pilot group, you probably would have had a lot of mansplaining going on, because a typical man would feel like he needed to explain to all these older women about finances, even if he doesn't understand half of what they do. So that's my bias. As I say, you all didn't say that. I said that, but and I don't think quite the same thing would happen in a male group, although there might be competition. So that would be interesting to see.
Yeah. And in choosing our presenters, because the structure of our workshop is an hour of this group coaching, bonding, support, and followed by an hour of a presenter who's a professional and an expert in that field of the topic, and a Q&A. Had we have chosen on purpose women professionals to be the presenters at this pilot program, and they are awesome. I mean, they are incredible presenters as well as incredible experts. They also are, so far, they've been our sponsors. And that is a lovely thing, because that is helping us have funding to grow this Life Matters. And after the presentation this past week, our sponsor, amazing presenter, said to us, "Oh my gosh, I love what you're doing. I love how you're doing it. This is so important. I want to continue sponsoring you. And in fact, I want to speak with Baird Wealth Management, the big
Which is a
national corporation, about being a sponsor for what
Oh, that's
we're doing."
excellent. So what is going forward? What is your plan with this? Just as the next couple of steps. I mean, you may have a very big picture, but what's the next couple of steps?
The next just short, immediate steps are we're going to do another one on, face-to-face presentation workshop while we are developing, and Susan is the brains behind this part, developing this platform, which will allow anyone, any time of day, to log on, choose a level of participation, and be able to participate in what we're developing and building now. We have a professional videographer. We're videoing so that we can put clips of that on this platform. And it's going to be, we see it as a nationwide program that will help generations, not just you, me, our next door neighbor, but their families, their children. We've seen Susan's story with her parents is honestly an exception. Many of the people that we've talked to, their stories have been exactly the opposite, where they've been in probate, they've been fussing with their relatives, they've been paying $20,000 just to get some of the things finished that we complete in our workshop. So we see this as growing exponentially.
It'd be fun to think about, and you probably are. I mean, you said this about generations, but one of the things people say to me is, why don't I include younger women in some of my work? Because they also need to understand about ageism if they are to help do away with it before they get to that point. So I could imagine that some younger people would really benefit from hearing this. It's sort of like planning for financial retirement before you're 58. That's a little late. I mean, it's better then than never. But
you're right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So we're out of time. I could imagine people might want to get in touch with you. How could they do that?
Easiest way is lifemattersworkshop.com. And on that website, there are contacts. There's more information about what we're doing. There's a way to talk directly to us to book a discovery session for both participation, sponsors, presenters. We're available to talk with people. And the website kind of gives an overview. And there's also a place to get on our list so that when the online platform launches, we can let everybody know.
Fantastic. So that's our time today. Please join us again. You can find our Prime Spark podcast on every popular outlet. Find out more about Prime Spark at www.primesparkwomen.com. Thank you so much to my guests today, Susan Davis and CiCi Stewart. And don't forget, you can find them at lifemattersworkshop.com. Go there, sign up for the email list so you can know when the online work is going to be done, if that's the way you'd like to do it. So thank you for being with us, everybody. Spread tolerance and love. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to stay updated, you can head over to my website, primesparkwomen.com, and get my free Spark Guide, 7 questions to ignite your spark, to help you discover your own spark. See you in the next episode.